We're a society in crisis. But what if we turned our disagreements into discussions, conflicts into opportunities? What if we acted a bit more civil? You see, civility can sweeten even the most bitter conversations. And at SHRM, we know people and businesses work best when we choose civility. So join me in starting 1 million civil conversations, because civility is a language we can all understand.
Hello and welcome to the 4th annual Better Workplaces Challenge Cup presented by SHRMLabs, SHRM's Workplace Innovation Lab and Venture Capital Arm. I'm Steve Brown, Chief People Officer of La Rosa's Inc., and I am the 2024 Ambassador for the Better Workplaces Challenge Cup. I will be your host for all these virtual events, and thank you for joining us today. A special thank you to all of our 2024 chapter and state council partners for their support. Our friends at the Eastern Panhandle Society for Human Resource Management are hosting some exciting upcoming events, and you can scan the QR code here to register. As a reminder, the first round consists of 5 segments, each focused on a different category within HR. From here, 5 will emerge as the best in category winners, advancing to the semifinals. The top 3 from the semifinals will then battle for the 2024 Cup live at SHRM Annual Conference held this June in Chicago. We hope you can join us there. Let's get this 4th segment started. Today's focus will be on performance management solutions. You will find in the chat the criteria these startups will be judged on today. And don't forget, there is a public voting component. So after you listen to each company's pitch, you can cast your vote using the link in the chat for your favorite solution. The company with the most votes at the end of the segment will be named the People's Choice. Please note that the public vote will not have influence over the judge's decision. This event qualifies for 2 PDCs towards your SHRM CP or SCP certification, and we will provide the code for you at the end of the event. Now, please help me in welcoming our judges for today. First is Rohit Thakur, CHRO, Auto and Farm Sectors at Mahindra & Mahindra Ltd. AMS Senkovici, Chief Talent and Diversity Officer at the Royal Caribbean Group. And Matt Hoffman, Partner and Head of Talent at M13. Welcome to the stage, judges. Thanks for joining us. So let's go ahead and get started with our first participant this time. Please welcome Francisco Marin, co-founder and CEO of Cognitive Talent Solutions.
Hi, my name is Francisco Marin, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Cognitive Talent Solutions. We are an organizational network analysis vendor headquartered in Palo Alto, California. Our research shows that 2/3 of high performers are not recognized as informal leaders by their peers. This is important for SHRM members because it impacts HR's ability to identify the right high potential employees for leadership development programs, the right early adopters for strategic change initiatives, and the right buddies and mentors to shorten the time to productivity of new hires. We address these challenges through organizational network analysis, a people analytics method that allows companies to analyze and visualize the informal interactions that exist across the organization, therefore identifying who are their informal leaders. In the context of leadership development programs, this helps HR make sure that high potential employees are simultaneously high performers and informal leaders, changing the leadership pipeline by up to 70%. When it comes to change management initiatives, HR can make sure that early adopters are informal leaders, being able to accelerate adoption of strategic changes by up to 70%. Last but not least, in the context of employee onboarding, HR can make sure that the bodies assigned to new employees are informal leaders, being able to shorten the time to productivity of new hires by up to 40%. Our competitors include companies like Worklytics, Polynode, and Humanize, among others. We differentiate ourselves from them because we are one of the only few vendors that leverage active data sources like online surveys and passive data sources like Office 365. We are also the only vendor that offers our O&A capabilities through the ServiceNow store. And last but not least, we are the only vendor in the industry that integrates generative AI capabilities into our O&A technology, increasing the actionability of the O&A exercise in a very significant manner. We have experience working with Global 2000 and Fortune 500 companies, including leading companies like Thermo Fisher, CBRE, and Securitas, among others. Our founding team comes from IBM and JP Morgan, and we count with experienced advisors, including academics from Harvard and Stanford University, and also former C-level executives from Fortune 500 companies. We elevate the HR function by helping HR practitioners become trusted advisors to business stakeholders, giving them access to social capital metrics that complement human capital metrics across a variety of processes in the organization.
Great presentation, Francisco, and welcome to the stage. Rohit, would you like to go ahead and get us started with the questions?
Yeah, thank you so much. Francisco, it was really interesting. The O&A is such a powerful tool to identify, like I would say, top talent. I had two questions. Okay, one, you mentioned the aspects of data searches, passive and active, right? In addition to data searches, I mean, how would you assess what peers think about an individual or direct reports think about an individual? So what are the kind of sources that maybe contribute to validating whatever data might be factually there through Office or 365 or anything else? The kind of solidity of that.
Yeah, when it comes to assessing the perception or how you're perceiving the organization by your peers, the online survey that we use in active data sources is really the best data source, because what we do is to launch an online survey and we ask employees how they interact with their peers based on informal interactions like sharing information, technical support, personal support, or inspiration. So that's really the most effective way to identify those informal leaders. The analysis we do through passive O&A on Office 365 is only aggregated metadata. We don't analyze the content of the communications and don't analyze all information at an individual level. There are other potential data sources we could use, but we found that the online surveys and the aggregated metadata from email is the most convenient and most effective data sources for organizational network analysis.
Got it. Thank you. If I can ask one more question. I've done this once in my organization, and I think the way at least I did it, I'm not sure about how your tool works, but it's pretty obvious, when somebody puts in a name on who is an influencer, right? So there's some people who come in the middle of the network, some people who come out way outside the network. It's pretty public data, to an organization. So any suggestions or any thoughts you have about the fear factor, the people who don't make it into a network, the sensitization of the management, or that it's how do you handle that mental aspect of maybe not making it and knowing that I haven't made it?
Yeah, first of all, it's very important to communicate the purpose of the initiative prior to launching the survey, so then employees clear what's the purpose of this project. And we position this often as an opportunity for employees to recognize the proactive value that their peers provide to them on a regular basis. For the first pilot, when the company is getting acquainted with this technology, a best practice consists in focusing on use cases that have a positive connotation. For example, rewarding and recognizing informal leaders, not necessarily implementing mitigation actions on peripheral employees. And as the company gets more experience with this tool, they can explore other use cases that are a bit more sensitive, like, for example, identifying leaders that might not be as influential as expected, or also it's a good practice to focus on use cases like reconnect employees that are peripheral, rather than trying to punish them or penalizing them for occupying a peripheral position in the network.
Thank you so much.
Great. Next question, over to you, AMS.
So you mentioned kind of the three archetypical use cases. So leadership pipeline, change management, and mentorship buddy inspiration. Which of those have you seen as the greatest pull from your clients? And how might have you adapted your go-to-market strategy or your service accordingly?
In my opinion, the most actionable use case is leadership development, because our research shows that 2/3 of high performer employees are not recognized as informal leaders by peers, which means that in the context of leadership development programs or succession planning initiatives where HR might not have daily experience working with the candidates that are proposed by the immediate supervisors, this becomes a really powerful tool to make sure that those candidates are simultaneously high performers and informal leaders, and you can change your pipeline by up to 70%. In the current environment where people really need to develop a trusting relationship with their leaders to be engaged and motivated in the organization, I think this is a critical use case.
Great. Last question, over to you, Matt.
Yeah, one of the questions I'm always interested in is kind of like the founder story in terms of like what made this a problem that you were interested in solving. Is it something you experienced personally, or what makes you feel like this is something that you wanted to build a solution for?
Yeah. I believe that networks provide the most effective and advanced framework to understand and manage these increasingly decentralized environments. I think that we are in a transition from centralized to decentralized organizations, and I think that networks are going to play a critical role in enabling alternative decentralized governance models to become scalable and help transition from the current type of organizations that we have to more decentralized and automated ones. This can happen in the context of decentralized autonomous organizations in the blockchain or other framework, but anyway, networks are going to play a very critical part of it. Any great invention that has happened in technology, from the internet to social network, really gravitated around the concept of frameworks and gravitated around the concept of networks. And I think that networks are going to play a critical role in building the future of work. That's why I'm passionate about it.
Great. Thank you, Francisco. We'll now let the judges write down their scores and their notes on their judging sheet. While they're doing this, how can attendees find out more information about Cognitive Talent Solutions?
You can visit us in our website, www.cognitivetalentsolutions.com, or you can also find me on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn hash is FMARINRUZ. I'll paste it in the chat. You can find me there. Thank you very much.
Great. Thanks so much for being here. Let's bring to the stage our next participant. Next, we have Claudia Naim Burt, co-founder and COO of Keep Company.
One of the most expensive costs for organizations in 2024 is burnout, costing $35 billion in turnover and productivity losses in the US each year. We're losing top talent, not because they want to leave, but because we're not equipping them with the skills to stay. Despite innovation in the workplace, there's one growing segment that has been ignored: parents and caregivers. Up to 73% of employees are caregivers. A mom of 3 becoming a partner at a law firm. Your CFO who's quietly taking care of his mother with dementia. In 2024, who's providing this group with the skills needed to integrate work and home? Offered exclusively through employers, Keep Company enables organizations to quantify, upskill, and retain parents and caregivers. We have spent the last 5 years thinking about this preventable attrition, because for my co-founder and I, despite success at Cooley, Hewlett-Packard, Edelman, and American Express, when we began caring for someone else, we felt ill-equipped. Now we have the team to be part of the solution. Our CTO is a CEO founder himself with a successful SaaS exit behind him, and we count on the support of the GM of Calm Health, a head of D&I, and experts in caregiving. But there's lots of tools for parents and caregivers, right? From care coordination to one-on-one leadership coaching. So what's missing? We're missing the necessary resilience skills to manage our big jobs at work and at home. How do you ask for help? How do you hold a boundary effectively? How do you think strategically about your time? Our caregiver platform has 3 components. The caregiver census safely and confidentially quantifies how many of your employees are parents and caregivers today. It also connects your team to resources in the moment, driving utilization of existing benefits. The data and insights from the caregiver census allow you to allocate resources based on data, not assumptions. A custom dashboard allows you to recognize and address any disproportionate impacts across seniority levels or demographics. Finally, our group learning experience, powered by our patented gathering technology. Dating apps match 2 people for compatibility. Our technology gathers groups of 8 parents and caregivers together based on over 60 factors to build resilient skills together. The program offers a third space between therapy and happy hour. Our solution leaves 95% of members feeling less alone, 83% communicate more effectively, 44% of our members are people of color, so we know we're impacting this where it's hardest hitting. Upskilling individuals, turns out, has tangible impacts for the employer. Keep company members resign at a rate 3 times less than industry average, saving our clients millions of dollars. We've partnered with 8 people-first organizations, including several top 100 global law firms, and in just 2 years, we crossed 7 figures in revenue, recently closing our seed round. We're building a future of work that enables employers to unlock one of the most overlooked and fastest growing segments, parents and caregivers. Join us.
Thanks for the presentation, Claudia. And we also want to recognize and have Adrian here on the questions. For this round, AMS, would you please get us started?
Absolutely. So I know bandwidth and time issues are an issue, especially for this population. And so I'm curious in terms of the sustainability and the uptake, especially not just engagement in the platform, but then engaging with the groups and then the sustainability of that. Can you give me a sense of, and I saw the stats related to those who are engaging. Can you give us the stats in terms of for those to whom they, like those who have access to this, how many of them are actively engaging and therefore representative of some of those stats?
Yeah, absolutely. So across the board, we have about a 20% utilization with our clients. One problem we're solving for with our census is that the denominator of the eligible population is somewhat fuzzy because employers aren't tracking caregiver status. So we've made some reasonable assumptions around that. We've gotten to 20%. With our earliest client, who we've been working with for almost 3 years now, we're at about 30%, and they've even made Keep Company available to their employee alumni to keep them connected to the organization.
That's fine. Thank you.
Great. Next question over to you, Matt.
Yeah, one of the things I'm always curious about with benefits like these, which are obviously so important, is that I'm seeing more and more a trend where employers are reluctant to purchase benefits that support a segment of the population rather than others. And that might be the case for parental care, for childcare, for education stuff. And they're all important. But when we're seeing kind of companies being very kind of judicious about where they spend kind of additional benefits, like how are you working with that? How are you overcoming that to make it feel like this is something that everyone, like, are you thinking about expanding? Is it designed just for niche and then, you know, basically complementary to other benefits? How are you dealing with that objection in some of your marketplace conversations?
Yeah, I appreciate this question a lot because a lot of what we have to do is education, right? That this isn't actually niche. It's 73% of the workforce. So actually, when we started, a lot of the feedback we got was, oh, we have a solution for new parents, or we have a family solution. And those actually do end up impacting a smaller segment, you know, let's say 10% of the workforce. What we found is this was way more people than anyone thought because we support all parents, moms and dads of kids of any age, and anyone caring for a family member. And those folks in particular, caregivers, are largely invisible in the workforce. And so we actually started to find, oh, you think this is 10% of your workforce. Altogether, it's 70% of your workforce. And so that led us to build out this census tool because it allows organizations to work from data about what actually their team is navigating And because we're a third party, they'll tell us. What ends up happening is that sometimes people are hesitant to tell their employer about their caregiving status. So because we're a third party, they'll disclose that through the census, and then the organization benefits from a zoomed out full picture, and then they can allocate resources more strategically. What we find is that one of the biggest things that the data highlights is the people that they're missing in terms of these benefits are their most senior talent. And that looks like folks taking care of teenagers struggling with mental health. It looks like your most senior partner who's caring for an aging parent. And so it actually pulls in the most senior leaders. We have really high utilization rates with the most senior leaders at the organizations we work with, which, certainly is compelling to the employer. But appreciate this question a ton, because a lot of what we find we're doing is educating the employer on the fact that this is a significantly larger segment than they initially thought.
Great. Last question, over to you, Rohit.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, I must compliment you for, whatever I could visually think about what the platform should have for somebody who's going through this challenge. I think you have it. Something that I noted was caregiver platform, connects team, data and insights, group learning experiences. You have it all, in the platform. So I think the intensity is there. I'm just correlating this, since I don't know how this works, to, let's say, LXP, the virtual training. You have platform where, again, you got Harvard there, you got the best trainings there, but still people don't really use it, right? As much as people want to see face to face. So in your platform, while you have everything, what challenges are you still trying to overcome, in making this even more scalable, even more acceptable, even better? That's because it's got everything, right? I'm going to say, okay, how do you maximize utilization? Are you seeing any challenges there? Any thoughts there?
Yeah, absolutely. So we see our core differentiation as the connection and the getting the right group together. So that's why we have our patent, is like getting the right group of people together, where we, and then of course the skill building. It's not just a support group. You're getting the right people together, and then that unlocks their behavior change and their skill building. What we're working on to get to the scalability you're referencing is how can that group connect asynchronously? Because right now they're meeting every other week at the same time, the same group with their coach. And that works because it's different. And that's where we hear the magic is. But both in between sessions, and then perhaps another tiered offering where that synchronous meeting is not possible, is what we're working towards. And so our CTO came on board in October, and we've got some ideas cranking over the next couple quarters.
Great. Thanks, Claudia and Adrian.
Thank
While the
you.
judges write down their notes and do their scores, how can people learn more about Keep Company?
Yes, www.keep-company.com. The name is about keeping your people, keeping your company. Without parents and caregivers, you won't be able to retain your people long term. So that's really where the name came from. We'll put that as well as our LinkedIn in the comments. Thank you so much.
Great. Thanks so much for being here. And now let's bring up our third participant for today. Next, we have Daniel Nilsson, co-founder and CEO of Much Skills.
Hey, my name is Daniel Nilsson. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Much Skills, and we offer a workforce planning and strategy solution designed around skills that embraces the strengths and passions of individuals. We invented Much Skills after struggling with employee engagement in our own teams. Many companies often try to satisfy employees by throwing freebies, perks and benefits, providing training and upskilling, and even 360 reviews. We also tried these solutions, but all of this worked only temporarily. The reality is that what employees want most is to be able to do their best work. Much Skills enables a balanced HR process to constantly reflect, reevaluate, and retarget employee talent with the organization's needs as the employee grows and changes over time. Strengths interventions at the workplace has proven effectiveness, but it has been difficult for HR to implement this at an effective scale, since most companies are still using something basic like this to solve complex data problems. Much Skills has solved this problem by creating an employee-centric solution with a focus on data visualization to identify gaps and opportunities, both for the employees and the organization. Employees add their strengths, and in return, the organization can make data-driven decisions by setting local L&D plans, conduct recruitment, skill gap analysis, strategic workforce planning, skill-based team building, and support individual growth plans. Client success highlights includes a customer who addressed a critical skill gap, saving millions, and another client who improved team building by focusing solely on competence and skills. There are plenty of other skills mapping and management softwares out there, but here's how we are different. The solution is employee-centric, decentralized, with focus on design to ensure value for all users. Or, as a customer put it, and I quote, "I absolutely love MatchSkills. From the UI to the functionality, it is truly a masterpiece." We are an experienced group of individuals that have worked and managed teams for the past 20 years and have firsthand dealt with what we call organizational skills fog, where no one is aware of the organization's capabilities and skills. Let's put skills at the center and enable each person to shine and do their best work. The coming months, we will release even better tools to enable our customers to find and match employees to the work that excites them the most. Thank you very much.
Great presentation, Daniel. Welcome to the stage. Matt.
Thank you so much.
Matt, why don't you get us started for this section?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I love this idea. I think it's so important. One of the things I've always been thinking about is how do you work with companies that don't have enough diversity or breadth of skills to find the right match, right? Or don't have enough roles, let's say. So if people are really looking to kind of match, you probably need kind of a critical mass. And how do you create the taxonomy and how do you apply it to companies of different sizes if they don't have that breadth and diversity?
It actually never happens. I don't know what to say. You always have it because you don't have to think roles. You can think competences, like leadership is a competence or a competence to be a consultant or anything else. You can also focus on teams. So you would say, what are the most important skills for this team, this squad, this department, or like almost anything. So almost any company, you can create a very specific skills taxonomy and then also add on our general global taxonomy. But yeah, I have to answer short. So this is the short answer. Sorry.
That's okay. If you want to add a little more, that's fine.
No, so I think like usually there are always something you can go on. So we have created a base taxonomy. So our researchers have found like the most important leadership skills, the most important transferable skills for any department. And then usually the company has some type of customer or business idea. And then you just simply identify the skills for that. And you will always find at least 100, 200, 300, 400, 500 skills for almost anything.
Great.
I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. Rohit, you're up next.
Sure. It's a really complicated one. So I'm trying to visualize how you would do this. I mean, I saw the different parameters that you assess, on the top slide. There are, and you just mentioned 400 skills, 500 skills, the taxonomy of skills on the diversity of organizations is massive, right? So how would you categorize skills and tag a learning asset to a particular skill, on the learning platform? Because as a user, I may not know A plus B equal to C. I mean, I may know what I want, but I may not know how I get it, right? How is that tagging happen? How does that tagging happen, or does it happen at all?
No tagging. So I think a lot of organizations, the mistake they do is that they think they have to be organized, but skills are not organized. There are a messy, lovely cloud of skills, and people call them even different things. And to be honest, it doesn't matter if it's skills or competences or whatever. You as an organization have very clear goals. You have a mission, vision, and you have certain customers. Your job is to satisfy these customers, and you just need to ask yourself, what are the skills, the competence required to satisfy these customers? You will then identify these and create strategies for these. You need to identify your skill gaps and skill risks. That is the most important. Then there are little details, of course, and there are thousands of skills that could be added, but they are not as relevant. Then, of course, there are tons of complexity into this because you want to add other things, coaching. You want to make it clear what skills are required for a role. You want to enable people to understand how they can move in the organization. You want to do tons of stuff. That we will also add, of course. But in big data with a big company, you would focus on the big things to make sure that you immediately will have strategic value. I hope that makes sense.
Great. Last question for this section, AMS.
Thank you. So this is a very, very intriguing space that everybody seems to be getting on this bandwagon. I'm curious, how do you assess the skills? I hope it's beyond self-assessment, especially considering that people are not their own best objective, critics or assessors. And then importantly, which of the skills are actually most important from a causal standpoint, not like, hey, we think this, but in a proven, data-driven way.
That question is about 30 minutes long, so I will do my best to answer it in less. So exactly. First of all, skills validation is important, and we have created a 4-step approach. You don't have to validate every skill. That's very important to understand. It's insanely expensive. You only have to validate the skills are important. The first thing you need to do is to be extremely employee-centric, and you need to engage and make value for the employees. In our solution, employees add 50 to 200 skills each. That is 5,000 to 20,000 skills for a company of 100 employees. Then we have something called social validations. Humans are extremely sensitive to what other humans do. So when you add your skill and skill level, you will see your colleagues, your best friend at work, and your boss. Then we have manager validation. And finally, we have a very specific skills validation tool that is designed in a way that we would survive any kind of intervention from, for example, German workers' associations, which is very difficult to survive. Very, very important to have it designed in a way where we satisfy everybody in a good way. So that's how you validate it. But very important, you don't have to validate everything. It actually doesn't really matter. The most important is that you can see big data, make big decisions, avoid big risks, then it's good enough. And each employee should have a personalized, individualized skill gap analysis so they can grow, understand how to develop, how to, grow as individuals, simply. This was my short answer, sorry. Thank you.
No, that's okay. Thank you. While the judges take their notes and do their scores, how can people find out more about Much Skills?
Put in the comment, you can go to muchskills.com or you can Google Much Skills. I even added my little favorite PowerPoint presentation, and you'll find cute cats and dogs in it because obviously we do what we want with our design, so we add things like that. So you can see my presentation and you can have a look there.
Great. Thanks so much for being here. And let's bring our fourth and final participant for this segment. We have Alex Haitoglu, founder of Ovida.
Hello, I'm Alex Haitoglu, presenting Ovida, Building Better Leaders. The leadership paradox. The last few decades, we're witnessing an explosion of amazing leadership books, training programs, and business coaching. Billions of dollars spent every year on leadership development in the US alone, and a $50 billion growing market. Practically everyone agrees the foundation of leadership is communication. It's about the way managers interact and relate with their people so they can feel inspired, excel, stay in the business, and thrive. So we know what it takes, and we're spending a ton of money on it, therefore it should be fixed, right? The opposite. Most employees feel like in this picture. 80% of US workers blame bad managers for creating unnecessary stress, and 50% would do better if the bosses knew how to manage them. 66% of leadership initiatives are deemed ineffective by those who pay for them, and it costs the US $1 trillion per year in lost productivity and employee turnover. This needs to change. Now, imagine training tennis players through books, seminars, and maybe a discussion with a coach about tennis without playing once every couple of weeks. It sounds ridiculous, right? So why do we do this with leaders at work? Instead, here's how we get results in tennis and in sports in general. 1, we record. 2, we use AI to get objective metrics. 3, a human coach guides us. And 4, we do targeted practice and repeat the process. This is exactly how Ovida works, the world's first on-the-job leadership development program that mirrors athletic coaching. We enable managers to, 1, securely record interactions, 2, gain insights through AI. 3, connect with a human expert. And 4, engage in targeted practice. OVIDA means continuous measurable improvement. Now, importantly, OVIDA is not another training tool. It's a revolutionary approach, redefining HR's role by allowing HR to lead and measure behavioral change in people. And also by getting managers to improve their leadership on the job, driving employee performance and business results. We started selling last summer and are already at 120,000 ARR with big corporate clients like Visa, as well as world-leading universities like Columbia, proving our approach works. We target 400,000 ARR by end of 2024. There is low competitive risk from adjacent markets in these two segments. The first, go on course humanly, good for specific discussions like interview training or sales, but does not work in high-trust conversations. The second segment, good for measuring reactions in training, presentation skills, but does not take into account the interactive communication that happens in trusted relationships. The two founders, Brian and Alex, have global corporate experience in organizations famous for the leader training, like Procter & Gamble, and they each have previous tech exits. Our co-founder, Brendan, is an award-winning data scientist with 20 years experience in tech and a focus on AI. Join us, and let's build better leaders together.
Thanks for the presentation, Alex, and welcome to the stage. Rohit, would you like to kick us off with questions for this round?
Sure, thank you. Alex, I just I love the holisticness, and in some ways you've actually democratized leadership, because now the person can pretty much, on the go, at your time, pretty much do what they have to do. The question, I think, is more a clarifying question. In the video you spoke about leaders who communicate well, are good leaders. My hypothesis is leadership has aspects of beyond just communication. It's got a lot of substance behind, what I do as a leader. So I'm assuming that your solution is not just focused on communication, it's focused on developing a holistic leader. That's my part one of the question, if that assumption is right.
Yes, that assumption is right. Sorry, yes.
Yeah, so if that assumption is right, then, the quality of coaching then, because leadership has so many angles to, how I come across, content, context, substance, style, everything else. So how do you ensure that the personalized coach that you spoke about, somebody can go to, is the right coach, for what I need improvement in?
That's great. So you're absolutely right. We're looking for how do we fundamentally improve the overall behavior as a leader and the different aspects to that. At the same time, what we've already seen after recording tens of thousands of sessions of also coaches, business coaches, and leaders, is that there are some fundamentals that, frankly, if these are not there, then the rest don't play such a big role. And there are some of the most important parts of communication. For example, how much am I actually listening versus talking to my people? How much am I asking open questions? How much am I pacing? How much am I interrupting? On a recent program we just did with the Florida International University and about 50 different businesses, we asked leaders, how much do you think you're talking to your people in your one-on-ones? What do you do? And the answers were, 2 ears, one mouth. We always care about listening and the rest. The average across the group, across the first 2 to 3 one-on-ones that they did, was about 60 to 70% of time talking. So what we're noticing is that there are some real first fundamentals that unfortunately the vast majority of leaders still do not do. And frankly, the SHRM data confirms that. And then once you have that, then you start building on top of that a lot more contextual things. And what we're doing for that, we're able already to train our AI. We're using a combination of AI tools, including large language models, but also our own AI tools. We're not a wrapper for ChatGPT. And we can actually train for specific things and specific leadership models. So for example, if a business has a specific one, they say, these are the behaviors I'm looking for, we can train our AI to pick up those behaviors specifically.
Great. Thank you.
Great. AMS, over to you.
Yeah, it's a combination. I'm going to continue the thread that Rohit started. Is there a specific, with a crisp question, is there a specific layer of leadership that this would target better than others? And the reason I ask does echo Rohit's piece, because I would say that like the tone, what you say, how you say all those things, they're a result of a mindset you hold. And if you don't deal with that mindset, dealing with the technical end result of it may have mixed results unless, well, I can argue my own argument against that. But so I'm curious, is there a layer of leadership that this is most applicable to?
So what we've seen so far, it's, and maybe a bit surprising, it's applicable for either fairly senior leaders that have the confidence to be able to do the self-awareness and understand that, something, I understand that feedback is part of the process and need to change, and or very new leaders who are aware that they don't know and they're willing to learn. We're finding it more difficult with middle level, where people neither maybe have the confidence of being able to receive feedback and change, and also they think that they sort of know how it's going. But the thread amongst all of them, which we think makes the biggest difference, is we're able to give them an objective perspective on what they're doing, so that also when they get the feedback from an HR professional, for example, who's viewing the platform, it's not that, oh, I think you repair your people. Is I think what I've noticed over your last 3, 4, 5 one-on-ones, you're exhibiting this behavior, that percentage, or whatever that is. And that allows the process of self-awareness, because if you don't start with self-awareness, nothing changes.
Right. Thank you.
Great. Matt, close us out for this segment.
And as you think about this kind of leadership, like how do you balance kind of like a coaching model, which is kind of ongoing, continuous improvement feedback, versus more like targeted leadership, which is I want to get better at this one specific thing. There's kind of a beginning and end. Like, how are you balancing those type of approaches, or is this really just designed to kind of fit in a certain area?
Very good question. So we started with coaching. And we started with coaching skills for a few reasons. First of all, a lot of the data from the market, including Google's Oxygen and Aristotle research, shows that being a good coach is one of the fundamental skills for being a leader. And because by modeling, recording, communication out there, we could get a perspective of what good looks like. One of the most difficult things to do is to be able to get standards on something. However, what we're finding more and more is that, of course, leadership has different perspectives. A leader is not only a coach. A leader needs to give hard feedback, needs to negotiate, needs to train, needs to mentor. So what we're able to do is, as we work with more and more leaders, start expanding across the different areas based on also what a business is looking for specifically. So we actually work with an HR team that says, hey, I'm looking for this specific aspect, and we can build a tool within the platform based on an AI that can pick up based on those specific skills. And that process of, hey, what do you want to measure? Or, for example, if you know who are your best leaders, we could actually model them based on 3 or 4 discussions and start telling you, hey, here's some of the things that your best leaders are doing that other ones are not. So what's the skill gap there? And what do we need to build in order to bridge the skill gap? So we will expand into a lot more areas. A leader has multiple facets, as you said, Matt. We started coaching, but we think it's very much applicable to what good leadership is, because we can actually now, probably for the first time, model it. And putting data behind that is an extremely exciting thing to do.
Great. Thank you, Alex. Now let the judges finish their notes and write down their scores. How can people find out more about Ovida?
So we'll put this also in the comments. Our website is www.ovida.io. And I have also my co-founder, Brian, here together with me. We'll post our LinkedIns also on the comments. Would love for you to engage and ask questions, and let's build better leaders together.
Great. Thanks so much for being here. This completes our round of pitches, and this is my favorite part, judges. Let's give our competitors a round of applause. I always love the virtual round of applause. The judges will now deliberate, so I'll ask you, judges, please grab the Zoom link in the chat, and you guys pop over there. I'll be there in a second. You guys can start your discussions about the 4 presentations. While the judges deliberate, if you haven't done so already, please visit the voting page now to make sure your vote gets cast for your favorite solution. The voting period will close in 10 minutes. Votes are being tallied in real time, and we will announce the winner determined by the judges, who will move on into the next round, as well as the winner of the public vote after the judges' deliberation. Vote now using the link in the chat. In the meantime, Arun Badi, Global Talent Strategy Leader, sat down with us to share his expertise on today's topic of performance management. Please enjoy this insightful discussion.
Hello, and welcome to the SHRMLabs Fireside Chat Series as part of our 2024 Better Workplaces Challenge Cup. My name is Nell Hellam. I'm a Workplace Innovation Specialist at SHRMLabs, and I'll be your host for today's discussion. Throughout this Fireside Chat series, we aim to provide a platform for insightful conversations with HR experts, delving into the latest trends, innovations, and best practices shaping the future of work and the workplace. As the Better Workplaces Challenge Cup brings together the brightest minds in HR tech and workplace tech startups, our Fireside Chat series serves as a complementary space where industry leaders can share their expertise, experiences, and insights with our global audience. So today we're honored to have Aaron Beatty, Global Talent Strategy Leader, joining us for a discussion around today's topic, which is performance management. So Aaron, welcome to the stage and thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Nell.
Before we begin, I'd love if you could tell the audience a little bit about yourself, your role, and your company.
Yeah, absolutely. So hi, everybody. Aaron Beatty here. Great to be talking about performance management and really excited to have this conversation. I would say, me in a nutshell, global citizen of the world. I would say, although I'm based here in San Francisco and it's beautiful and sunny out, I've worked in Singapore for the past 15 years until recently. And I grew up in both Asia, in schooling, et cetera, and then also in Europe. So I feel like I can carry that title. My role and goal is I develop sales leaders globally. Most recently at Visa for the past 10 years in my capacity there, but also now more into the understanding some of the research that goes on behind leadership development. I'm working closely with Cornell as an adjunct lecturer and also with USC in their executive education on how to drive impactful leadership development. I practice what I preach, or at least I feel like I do, which is constant learning. I really believe in it. And in fact, I took the plunge and went back to school after 30 years and got my master's at Cornell in HR last year during the pandemic, which was a little tough, but I was able to get back to campus a few times. So thanks, Nell.
Yeah, excited to dive into today's topic. I think, it's a great jumping point for us is learning and development. You mentioned going back to school and really putting into practice what you preach. Learning and development, it's integral to performance management. So I'm just curious what strategies organizations can use, in your opinion, to align their L&D programs with performance goals and ensure that they have a measurable impact on employee performance.
Yeah, such a great and important question of how to align L&D with performance. And I think fundamentally, if we just step back for a second and just think about learning, it's really at the core, it's about developing critical, in my mind, it's developing critical thinking skills. Obviously, you want it to be tied to the company's goals and improving decision-making in companies, right? I mean, we are the sum of the decisions we make, or at least we think we are. And so if you think about it from that perspective, classes and learning programs should fall out of how to make better decisions. So at Visa, it was things like storytelling, which was putting yourself in the customer's shoes. It was things like negotiations, how to be effective at getting something back for what you give. But it shouldn't be the other way around. You shouldn't have like a series of classes and then kind of work back into the key question. I think it needs to start from the top. And then the second thing is, I think we need to help employees really understand the business end to end. So often we tend to offer programs in learning and development that are specialized. I think you need to build generalists on top of specialists. And so at Visa, one of the things we did was really help people, and as part of the new hire orientation, is really understand a transaction from end to end. Basically, the ability to whiteboard a transaction. We're not asking for people to get under the hood, so it's like driving a car, but they need to learn how to drive the car and understand the business fundamentally. And then third, I think sometimes in L&D we tend to focus on the wrong things. And what I mean by the wrong things is the easier things, like the things that we know. So we teach the things that we know, but there are also things that we know that we don't know. And then so we go out and we bring that in. But what about exploring the things that we don't know, that we don't know, that bucket? And that's through discovery, through blind spots, by asking good questions. And it goes back to my first point, which was developing critical thinking skills. So those are kind of my views on L&D and performance management.
Yeah, yeah, no, thank you. I think, leading into my next question, speaking of, not knowing what we don't know, part of that I think is coaching, right? And developing as a professional. So, coaching, it's not, in my mind, it's not just about addressing current performance issues, but it's also about fostering growth and development for employees, for yourself. So how do you think organizations can ensure that their coaching programs support both performance improvement, but also career and professional advancement?
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it really well, Nell, that we don't know what we don't know. And I think the most important, if you take something away from this conversation, I think, coaching is probably, in my experience so far, at least, the most underutilized skill in management. It's not that we don't know about it. It's not that we're not learning. It's just the most underutilized. And I think so we need to go, if we want as organizations to go from sort of this command and control way of running our businesses to how Jim Collins talks about going from good to great is through collaboration and communication. We need coaching. We need to be better leaders and coach. How do we do that? That's what the coaching companies are doing. That's what companies are doing in finding the best practices. But most importantly, we as practitioners need to drive awareness of the return on investment of that coaching into the business. I think that's where there's the missing link.
Yeah, definitely. And, when thinking about, business and, the increasing focus on data-driven decision-making in business, would love to pivot to people analytics, right? Another part of performance management. How can organizations leverage people analytics in their performance management processes to help them gain insights and improve business outcomes?
Yeah, I mean, if we just step back for a second, we always want to have tools that are effective. I'm going to be a little bit provocative here, only because I feel like this is a safe forum to do that. But I think, and no offense to those people analytics folks, I'm a people analytics junkie myself. But my provocative thought is, I think people analytics is still in its infancy, and I'm not sure the data is really as useful as it should be yet. And part of that is just a lot of volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, that phrase that people we use called VUCA. I think what is needed with data is better decision making with less information, not with more. And what I mean by that is, like, if you think about thought leaders like Malcolm Gladwell and others who talk about using telltale signs and focus on the leading indicators, right? The things that help us make decisions going forward, because that's what we want to do, not the lagging indicators. Then you start to get the picture of like, oh, okay, I need data to help me make those decisions. But the most important thing is, let's not let poor data get in the way of making decisions in the first place. And then you can always circle back, right? And you can use the data to validate the assumptions that you make. And obviously you can tweak those assumptions afterwards, like do a postmortem and say, hey, what did I do well? What did I not do well? What can I do to improve? So that's my 2 cents on analytics and data.
Yeah, no, thank you. I'd love to take kind of a forward-looking approach now. For my last question, you mentioned those telltale signs, right? So in your mind, what are those telltale signs currently when we're looking at the future of performance management? What does it look like? How can organizations adapt? What should they be doing to adapt now? Their approaches to align with the changing workforce dynamics and just changing expectations.
Yeah, look, you mentioned it really well. Like, things are changing, workforce dynamics are changing, remote, hybrid, all of these things change. But you know what? I'm still a believer that the more things change, the more sometimes the more they stay the same. And when it comes to performance management, It's about aligning your passion with your purpose. And it's an art and it's a science. But fundamentally, performance management is about motivating people to do their best, which is as old as the hills. What's missing is what I'm...
Sorry to cut that great discussion short, but you can watch the video in its entirety using the link in the chat. Let's give a hand one more time to all the great companies that competed today. At the beginning, one of the companies received the most votes and will now be recognized as the People's Choice for this segment. And the winner of the People's Choice is Much Skills. Congratulations to Much Skills for being the People's Choice. Finally, one of these companies will be moving forward and will compete in the semifinals of the 2024 Better Workplaces Challenge Cup. So let's get to it. The winner of this segment on performance management systems is Ovida. Major congratulations to Ovida, and we look forward to your participation in the semifinals. You will get to hear from the top 3 finalists from the first 2 rounds in a special episode of our Workplace Tech Spotlight in June, and we hope to see you there. Thank you to our 3 judges, Rohit, AMS, and Matt. Appreciate you being here today, and for all the participants in the contest. And also thank you everybody today for attending. Please note that this event qualifies for 2 PDCs towards your SHRM CP or SCP certification. The code to use is 24-USC7K, and we will display the code here on the screen in a second. There it is. Again, 24-USC7K. We'll be back in 2 weeks with segment 5 of round 1 on Tuesday, May 7th. Please visit our website, which we are posting in the chat, to stay informed and register to attend our future events. We hope you can join us. Have a great day and see you soon.